The fun continues in Allen Park and in this city talking Lions. Eric Eager with us from Sumer Sports today as we get ready for a huge game on Sunday. It's a Tuesday. Locked on Lions.
You are Locked on Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
It's a Tuesday edition of Locked on Lions, everybody. Matt Dery with you on the Locked on Podcast Network. Tuesday, December 13th and a Wednesday, December 14th. Thanks for making us your first listen. And thanks for checking us out on all of the platforms. You can find Locked on Lions, including LockedOnLions.com, Twitter, Dery Speaks, at Locked on Lions, the Matt Dery Facebook fan page, and hello to everybody watching on the Locked on Lions YouTube channel. If you've not subscribed, please do so you can get the show each and every day. Eric Eager, the man from Pro Football Focus, now at Sumer Sports, but at the start of the year, and even this summer, Eric started on Twitter at @EricEager_ with Restore It. He was saying, I believe in this team. He liked the Lions. This summer, he was talking about this could be a double-digit win team, and we all laughed and everything else. We've had Eric on the show, and now he's kind of laughing and clapping back at us. We're going to have Eric on to tell us about his new venture at Sumer, working with Thomas Dimitroff, and we'll talk some Lions and Jets and Lions and Vikings with Eric coming up momentarily on the program as well. Also, we want to tell you Locked on Lions today is sponsored by Simply Safe Home Security with Fast Protect technology exclusively from Simply Safe. 24/7 monitoring agents capture evidence to accurately verify a threat for faster police response. There's no safe like Simply Safe. Visit simplysafe.com/LockedOnNFL to learn more. Dan Campbell today was on the Pat McAfee show, and you can go online and watch it or find it on YouTube. But there's a theme with what's going on with the 6-7 Lions, winners of 5 of 6, as they get ready to go to New York to face the Jets this weekend. Again, early books and early lines had the Lions as a 3-point underdog weeks ago with the future betting line. And you know me, I'm no like Dan Leach. I'm not going to sit here and Kenny Cott and go over all the locks here, and the spreads and everything else. But now in some sports books, the Lions are 1-point favorites. It was a pick 'em on Sunday night. Some places you can get the Lions -1 against the Jets. The fact that the Lions could be favored in December against anybody, all right, and a winning team and a team fighting for a playoff spot in arguably the best division in football is incredible. And the Lions have not done well against the AFC East, all right? Lost to the Bills, lost to the Patriots, got embarrassed by the Patriots, lost to the Dolphins. Here's their last chance to get a win over an AFC East team. And Dan Campbell was on Pat McAfee today and was joking around talking about how he was watching the fans do the wave the other day at Ford Field and he was distracted. And then he's like, we're throwing the ball to Penei Sewell. What are we doing? And it was funny and everything else. But they're having fun. And there's something to be said about changing the culture and hearing people say, oh, culture change the culture. It's one thing to actually say it and hear every team talk about it. But it's another thing to actually do it and see it with your own eyes as a fan. And I watched Dan Campbell on the McAfee show today, and I'm hearing other players. Justin Jackson, the running back, was on CBS Sports Radio over the weekend. These guys are having a lot of fun. They truly pick each other up. It is a complete team performance. This is not a group of individuals. I was talking to somebody today about the Michigan-Ohio State game, and they told me they were in Columbus and how they watched how Michigan plays as a team and how Ohio State was sort of not as much on that string. It does matter. All right, this team needs more talent. There's not enough talent on this roster yet. All right, the Lions are going to have 2 first-round picks again. They could have a top 3, top 5 pick, depending on what the Rams end up doing. They could get a Will Anderson or somebody like that. Imagine what that would do for this defense. But because if a special teams mistake is made or an offense mistake is made or a defensive mistake is made, the other guys pick each other up. And that's kind of been a theme with this team right now. They're tough, playing together, they're having fun. The coach is able to let his hair down a little bit and have some fun and actually talk about winning and not just about as national people say, biting kneecaps and all this stuff. It's actually happening now. And it's been fun. And again, this weekend against the Jets is going to be a huge game for this football team that is 5-1 in their last 6 games. Eric Eager from Sumer Sports. We're going to get his thoughts on the Lions. We're going to do that coming up next. But first, we got to tell you about our friends at BetOnline. Again, go to betonline.net right now to see that the Lions and Jets, at least on their site, is a pick 'em at the moment. Some books have it at one point, but if you want to go to the best place to get the odds, see what's going on, betonline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From pro football to the college bowl season to basketball and World Cup, they've got it all at betonline.net. If you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, it is where the game starts. Lions are red hot. We got to catch up with this guy. He has been all over this from the beginning, formerly of PFF and now of Sumer Sports. It's Eric Eager back with us here on Locked On Lions. E, what's going on, buddy?
Matt, I mean, I've been having so much fun watching the Lions. I honest to goodness was having fun even when they were losing because you could sense that they were close. And, all it took was a couple, I wouldn't even say lucky wins, Green Bay and Chicago. But it certainly was fun to see them kind of get over the hump a little bit. And now down the stretch, not necessarily favorites to make the playoffs by any stretch, but they're at least contenders here. I couldn't be happier.
You and I talked many times, and at the start of the year, you said it. You said, I'm going to use that restore it hashtag. I'm on the Restore the Roar bandwagon. I like this team. You believed in them. You're not necessarily a Lions fan per se, but 5 out of 6, Eric, 4 games to go. I know what Kornacki and these guys are saying, but how realistic of a shot do you think they have to get in?
Yeah, I think it's about 20%. I know the markets have them more like 25%, so that is a good sign. I think that the markets are afraid of taking bets on the Lions. In fact, one really respected bookmaker, Jeffrey Benson, in the at Circa Las Vegas, who, one of the sharper sports books in all of the desert there, has the Lions as the 10th best team in the NFL in their power rankings, which is crazy to think about. But yeah, they got a shot. I mean, you look this week, they were 3-point underdogs on the look ahead to the Jets after last week. And now some of this can be attributed to the Jets having injuries. But now it's about a pick 'em to, some books are even letting you lay a point with the Lions on the road. Then they go to Carolina. I know Carolina has been salty a little bit with Steve Wilkes at coach, but that's certainly a game where I think the Lions will be favored. At home against Chicago, I think they'll be favored in that game as well. And then anything's possible. We know last year the Lions in Week 18 against the Packers got to see Jordan Love for a half of football and won that game. So it's looking okay. I think that the only thing that, Lions fans maybe have to look at with a little bit of regret is, the loss to Minnesota early in the year, the loss to the Dolphins. Those 2 games I think were winnable. But the real thing that I think is hurting them right now, but they might be able to overcome it, is the fact that Washington and New York, 2 teams that the Detroit Lions beat soundly, tied that game, right? And now their tiebreaker against them is mostly irrelevant. So the path is windy, but I mean, if you're a Lions fan, you say, okay, if we win out, we're going to make the playoffs.
At Eric Eager _ is the new Twitter hashtag, or not hashtag, but the new Twitter handle for Eric, who's now with Sumer Sports. I mentioned yesterday you were coming on the show, kind of partnering up with Thomas Dimitroff. I know you left PFF a little while ago, but tell us about the new venture.
Yeah, so Paul Tudor Jones is a world famous asset trader, and he he and his son Jack wanted to start a football business, and so they went in and got Thomas Dimitroff. Dimitroff is former Detroit Lion, by the way, former scout with the Lions back in the day. Thomas and I became friends when I was with PFF because I had a contract with all 32 teams and would work with him on actually a couple projects. I was part of the Ricardo Allen contract, and I was also part of a few other ones for them. And when he was let go by the Falcons in the middle of the 2020 season, I decided to look, I want to make some of PFF's products better. So I got to know him a little bit. We started daydreaming about what it would be like if a GM was able to go fully in on analytics and that kind of thing. And so when the Joneses wanted to start that company, they first thought of Thomas to be the CEO. And so, Thomas, joined a little earlier than I did, but then I joined, late August, early September. Now, we're building cool products for NFL teams for, searches and things like that. And, some things to be named later. We have a podcast right now called the Sumer Sports Show with Eric Eager and Thomas Dimitrov. Last night's episode, Monday of this week, we talked about evaluating edge players. From my perspective as an analyst and his perspective as a scout, I thought it was really fun. And it's just cool to be able to pick his brain because, I've just been on the outside my entire life, math professor, PFFer. I've never worked for a team. And so being able to, work with Thomas, and talk about the inner workings of a team from an outsider's perspective has been really cool for me.
Analyzing the edge rushers, where do you have Aiden Hutchinson?
Well, I had Aiden Thibodeau and Karlaftis were the three ones I liked the most in that draft. And obviously the Jaguars went in another direction. I think the Lions benefited from that because I think Hutchinson's been the best player at that position among rookies in the league so far. Obviously 7.5 sacks, a couple interceptions, really has been a force. And in fact, he started out the year hot, the 3 sacks against Washington, kind of in the middle of the season, petered out a little bit and then has really emerged in the last few games. So I think the Lions look great there. Maybe, in the next upcoming draft, they can think about another one depending upon what they want to do at the quarterback position. But the Lions, the cool thing about them is they have a lot of options now, man. Being, Brad Holmes, being strong and trading Matthew Stafford and getting picks, this roster has a chance now.
No, I don't think there's any question about it. Eric Eager with us now of Sumer Sports. Lions getting ready to take on the Jets. I want to ask you about New York in a second, but you mentioned Jared Goff and the quarterback situation. It's been a roller coaster. Last year, start of the year, it's, oh my God, Bridge quarterback, he sucks. End of the year, it's he and Ben Johnson are clicking. Maybe he'll be here a while. Same thing at the start of this year. The pick 6 against Seattle, get him out of here. Let's draft C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young or Will Levis. And now all of a sudden it's, let's give Goff a lifetime contract. He's 7th in the league in passer rating. Where do you stand on Jared, and why do you think he's having so much success right now?
Yeah, I think the clear bifurcations in the data are where Amon-Ra St. Brown plays or doesn't play. And I think that's the clear indicator. So, I think quarterbacks who have the long-term big deal should be more impervious to changes than that, right? So if you can take one guy away from the offense and it changes drastically, and like this was a team in the Lions who they didn't score. It was a part in the middle of the year where they went they played 8 halves of football and didn't score in 6 of them, right? So there was a lot of lull. Now, obviously you look at this offense and your 5th best wide receiver is either, depending upon the order, Josh Reynolds or Khalif Raymond. This offense has an embarrassment of riches at this point. So Goff is going to do really well, especially with the offensive line playing as well as it was early in the year. You're talking about guards who are coming off of practice squads having to play. And now, you have not only your 2 tackles who are great, center who's a little healthier than before, and you're getting decent guard play. Goff can do all those things. And I think, I think back, and this is cliche because obviously, the Chiefs ended up with the best quarterback in football. So, it's somewhat resulting. But I think back to Alex Smith. I'm a Chiefs fan. I went to playoff games where the Chiefs were 12-4, and they were at home, and they're underdogs to the Steelers. And you're just like, well, until you get the quarterback that can be better than Ben Roethlisberger on a neutral field, you're just going to be underdogs in the playoffs. And so Alex, when they drafted Mahomes, they traded up for Mahomes 10th in 2017. Alex Smith led the league in passer rating in 2017. Yeah. And, they still moved on from him. I don't think it's offensive at all to stick with Jared Goff, pay that, especially given you have so much young talent on this team, you're relatively healthy cap-wise. Go with Jared Goff for another year, but draft a guy high, right? And whether you have to use the Rams pick to draft that guy high, or you use a pick at what's going to be in the 20s for a guy, I think that they have a lot of options there. I think what the hard part about quarterback play in the NFL, and we saw this early in the season with Detroit, with Geno Smith, it's like never evaluate a quarterback on either extreme, right? So when Geno Smith was, lights out, one of the top 5 players in the league at his position, like everybody's saying, oh, he's worth $35-40 million. And now he's losing games to, the Raiders and the Panthers and stuff. It's somewhere in between. So like, take a step back of Lions fans and say, okay, take the average over this whole season, right? The goods, which is the Washington game and the last 6 games, the bads, which are the Dallas game and the some of the other game, the Patriots game. Take the average of that, and what would you do? Well, you probably would try to look for something a little bit better, but that's certainly good enough next year. If you patch a few holes and you get lucky injury-wise, you could still win with Jared Goff next year. It's just that, it's just been demonstrated over and over and over again. It's hard to sustainably be a Super Bowl contender with a quarterback like Goff.
More with Eric Eager coming up next. I want to ask him a little bit about the defense and the improvements made there, and then we got to talk about the game this weekend against the Jets, which all of a sudden is a very big game. Heck, CBS sending their second team there with Ian Eagle, a second best team with Ian Eagle and Charles Davis. We'll have Ian on Friday. We'll do that coming up next. What about our friends, though, at PrizePicks? A lot of fun, daily fantasy. It's different. You're going up against the projections and not against other people. Last night, you might have had Kyler Murray to throw for more than 300 yards. Well, he got hurt, tore his ACL, and you're probably blank out of luck. But you try again this week, and you can do it every single week with the NFL. But also the great thing about PrizePicks, you pick 2 to 5 players. If they score more or less than their PrizePicks projections, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. And you can play tonight with the NBA or the NHL or college basketball. You can do all that at PrizePicks.com. You download the app, PrizePicks app, or go to PrizePicks.com and sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. 50, they'll give you 50, whatever. Don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for instant deposit match up to $100. Our buddy Eric Eager is with us from Sumer Sports, getting ready for Lions and Jets this Sunday. Eric, the defense has been good. It's been getting better. Future head coach Aaron Glenn has got them playing well. What are you seeing on tape and certainly when you look and crunch the numbers?
Yeah, I mean, Aubrey Pleasant is, his removal has helped them. I think, unfortunately, you don't ever want to see somebody lose their job, but they, for whatever reason, that has been a catalyst for them. They've played some offenses that can click, right? So the Vikings kind of did what they wanted to against them with Justin Jefferson, but everybody else on that roster was fairly meager in their contributions last week. So, they were at least able to they were at least able to, be a speed bump for the Vikings. The previous week, a Jacksonville team that went on the road and killed Tennessee just now, only got, one touchdown there, against them in that subsequent game. So I think it all starts with pass rush. They're getting good pass rush. A lot of those plays that Cousins was able to make on Sunday against them were, deep passes that were, where a guy was in his face and they just, Justin Jefferson is the best wide receiver in the NFL and was able to show it. So I think process-wise, they've gotten a lot better. I think that the whole thesis this year was if the Lions could be a top 20 defense in the NFL, this team could win. And I think, if you average out over the past 6 to 8 weeks, I think they really have been a top defense, even not only getting into this winning streak, but a game against Dallas, a game against New England. I thought that they played fine defensively, and they've mostly played okay over the past few weeks. Does that mean they'll continue that way? Well, the schedule kind of lines up nicely for them. You have a backup quarterback in New York. You have a backup quarterback in Carolina. You probably will have a backup quarterback in Chicago if we look at how Justin Fields continues to get hurt, and you might have a backup quarterback in Green Bay with Jordan Love there. So can this defense help them win the 3 out of 4 they probably need to win to get into the playoffs? I think so. It's not necessarily a lock, but I think that they're certainly above that Mendoza line.
Yeah, Washington and the Giants playing each other helps. Certainly that tie a couple of weeks ago helps. The Lions have shown, they've beaten Washington and the Giants. They got to go back to the Meadowlands this week. Outdoor game. Jets are physical, Eric. That's what scares me, and I know they've had some injuries. Quinnen Williams, and you tell me, I think he's as good as any defensive player in the AFC. And Sauce Gardner That's a physical team. This is going to be a big time battle this weekend.
Yeah, and I think that the thing for them is, can they get pressure on Mike White? Can they tackle in the open field? Because Mike White, the value he brought relative to Zach Wilson was he would get rid of the ball early, take the check down. So can the Lions tackle? But then on the other side of the ball, if Quinnen Williams is healthy enough to play, which looks like he might be, can they get a push up front? Because, lost in how great they were offensively against Minnesota was the fact that they didn't really run the ball all that effectively in that game. And I think DeAndre Swift has been kind of a disappointment this year. I think Jamal Williams is at least getting what's blocked every time, but kind of nothing more, nothing less. Can they get an efficient run game against the Jets? Because all that stuff opens up. The Jets have a pretty good secondary. They've invested in it. And, while I think great wide receivers almost always beat great defensive backs, and I think Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's the Lions' best player, is probably a better matchup against Sauce Gardner than a lot of the longer levered wide receivers are. It's still not going to be as easy as it was against Minnesota. Minnesota's the worst defense in football in many metrics, whereas the Jets are among the best, and we're able to at least give the Bills some fits on Sunday. So yeah, it's going to be a tough matchup. I mean, I think the markets, again, I think the markets are giving the Jets and the Lions a lot of respect in this game, and I think both have earned it.
You just mentioned Minnesota. I got to ask you, there's a couple of local scribes here saying, the Lions took care of the fraudulent Vikings. I never like saying that. No one's saying the Vikings are winning the Super Bowl, but when you've won 10 games out of 13, I know a lot of them are close, but still a decently good football team. They're not frauds, are they?
Yeah, I think that the Vikings being 9-0 in one-score games, you take half of that and you make that their number. They're more like a 5 and they're basically a 500 team. So in that regard, like, it's good for the Lions to beat them, but calling them frauds is tough because those wins allow you to do some things like rest Harrison Smith against the Lions, rest Garrett Bradbury and Christian Darrisaw against the Lions. So those wins matter. You're not taking away those wins. But I think, what it proved on Sunday, though, is like 10-2 is not necessarily better than 5-7. You really do have to look at the underlying metrics if you're trying to predict. Like, going back in time and saying, the Vikings won 10 games, like, I think that's perfectly fine. But if you're trying to predict and say, okay, this team's a real Super Bowl contender, like, it does matter to go back and look at the underlying metrics. And, I think for the Lions' sake, it was more of like, the Lions are trying to get up and pass the Vikings and all the fundamentals to the point where if they do make the playoffs, let's say they get a 7 seed and the Vikings were to get the 2 seed and that game goes to US Bank Stadium in round 1 of the playoffs, like, I think most smart people would say I give the Lions a 45 to 50% chance to win that game. And I think that that's all really what the conversation is. Yeah, fraud's a little hard, and it's just never useful to say that because, everything is in context. And but much like the Lions, the Vikings could improve fundamentally down the stretch, and having those 10 wins in your hand, as Lions fans are thinking about now, like, you've just won 5 of 6 games, but you still need to win basically all but one going in because you didn't collect the wins you should have gotten early in the year. Like, those wins matter. They just don't necessarily predict how good you're going to play in subsequent years.
When they were 1-6, this man was still there. He was still a believer. He was still restoring it. And here he is today on the show, basking in the glow of the 5 out of 6 red hot Detroit Lions. Eric, great to see you. Congrats on the new gig, and we'll do it again soon.
Matt, thanks for having me. Take care.
Eric Eager with us on Twitter at Eric Eager _. For those of you watching on the YouTube channel, I messed up and didn't change the, the graphic, but Eric's with Sumer Sports now at Eric Eager _. We got the crossover Thursday, Iron Eagle Friday right here on Locked On Lions.